Hello and welcome to the King's Path podcast, where we explore what it means to grow, to lead, and to stand up as responsible men in today's world. I'll be your host, Adika Austin, and today we are talking about something that a lot of men carry silently. Today, we are talking about fatherhood gaps. Because what happens when dad isn't there? What happens when dad isn't there physically, emotionally, or both? This episode is very personal, very honest, and for some of us it might be the conversation that we've never had, but that conversation that we've always needed. Because growing up without a father isn't just about an empty seat at the table. It's about the missing guidance, the silence during big decisions, and the invisible weight of trying to figure out life alone. And oftentimes it ends up leaving questions. Questions like, who do I learn strength from? Questions like, what does it mean to be a man? Questions like, how do I make decision without someone who's been there before? And so many boys are forced to become men before they are even ready. And most of them end up faking confidence while silently carrying confusion, fear, and frustration. But here's what I've learned, that even if you grow up without a father, you'll still have the power to define what manhood means. Because your beginning doesn't have to be your end. And I'm not speaking this from a distance. I'm speaking this from a point of experience. I'm speaking this because I've lived it. Because I grew up without my father being present in my life. And there was no one whom I could have a heart-to-heart talk with. No one to guide me through school. No one to guide me through career, or even how to deal with failures. And honestly speaking, I struggled, and I struggled a lot. Oftentimes I suffered and I battled with self-doubt. I battled with anger, and with constantly asking myself, am I really enough? And I compared myself to boys who had their dads around. And I felt behind, like I was trying to build a house with no blueprint. But somehow along the way, through mentors, through life experiences, through trial and error, I slowly began to shape my identity. And I began learning what responsibility, emotional stability, and self-leadership really meant. And truthfully speaking, it wasn't easy, but the journey was worth it. That's why this conversation matters, because the pain of absence doesn't have to define the rest of your life. So, how do we move forward when we didn't have someone to lead us? Personally, for me, it began with a decision. A very painful decision, but a decision that would later make me free. I decided to break the cycle. And it wasn't just overnight. It was a process. And here are the 4 things that I'll share that really changed my life. Number 1 is to be honest with what hurt. Because for a long time, I pretended that I was okay. I brushed it off, acted tough, and avoided the topic of my father entirely. But deep down, it was eating me up. But one day, I sat down with myself and I started asking myself questions. And this question really escalated, that this thing really hurt. And for how long will I continue hurting? And it was in that moment of honesty that something was cracked open. It was uncomfortable but necessary, because you can't heal from a wound that you won't admit exists. And admitting it didn't make me any weak or any less, but admitting it gave me the power to take the next step. And number 2 was to learn from others. Intentionally learning from others. Because after opening up about what I felt, I started talking to people that I trusted. And it was in this moment that a certain man stepped in as a mentor. And at first, I didn't even know how to receive what he was offering, because he challenged me, he listened to me, he corrected me and encouraged me. And over time, he began filling a gap that I didn't think would ever be filled. And it was at that moment that he became the father figure that I never had. And that only happened because I allowed myself to be open to learning, to be guided even as a young adult. Because in life, you don't have to figure out everything alone. Sometimes the answers that you need are living in someone else's experience. The answer that I need is living in someone's experience. And so number 3 was to define my own personal values. With the help of my mentor, I started unlearning things that I had picked up from streets, things that I had picked up from social media, and the things that I had picked up from broken examples. And it was during this period that we had very long and lengthy conversations about manhood, about leadership, about emotional control, and even how to handle failure. I began asking myself, what kind of man do I want to become? What do I want to stand for? And that was the beginning of me rewriting my definition of masculinity. Not based on survival tactics, but based on principles. And this time, I was not copying anyone, but I was the one building something that was real. And number 4, I decided to break the pattern. Because at just one random day, it hit me that I don't want my future children to ever feel the emptiness that I felt. Because I know for sure that I can't change my past. But I have the power to shape someone else's future. And I can help shape someone else's future. And that's exactly what I've committed to. I may not have had a father present in my life, but I have every intention of being present, intentional and consistent when my time comes. And this cycle ends with me, not by accident, but by choice. So, if you're listening and you feel stuck, allow me to remind you that the absence of a father is not the end of your story. You can still build up, you can still grow, and you can still become the man that this world desperately needs. If you felt like something's been missing, you are not alone. If you felt like something's been missing in your life, you are not alone. If you've grown up gazing about your worth, then allow me to tell you that you are not broken. Because we all start from different places, but each of us has a chance to rewrite the story. You may not have had a father to guide you, but you can become the man others look up to, a man of responsibility, a man of discipline, and a man of strength. Because you are not defined by who left. You are defined by what you choose to become. That's it for today. That's all that we've had for you for today. Thank you for tuning into the King's Path podcast. And if this episode has spoke to your journey, share it with someone who you know needs to hear it. And always don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Adika Creatives Media. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and always remember that we release a new episode each and every week. Until next time, keep growing, keep building, and stay on the King's Path. God bless you.